Three true 4th of July horror stories animated.
I tried to duck into another aisle, gripping my 7-year-old
beer belly.
nephew's hand as tightly as I could. Liam complained that I was walking too fast and needed to slow down. I ignored his whining. My heart was hammering in my chest, and I was desperately hoping I was just being paranoid. But the guy followed us, first to the holiday decorations, then the snacks, then the paper goods aisle. He was around 6 feet tall, his face...
Here, actually, I'm gonna do this so y'all can see it better.
Mostly hidden beneath a baseball cap, and he'd gotten way too friendly with Liam since the second we'd walked in around half an hour earlier. I kept telling myself he was just another shopper looking for 4th of July gear, maybe a little lost. People wander aimlessly through the store all the time. I tried to convince myself it didn't mean anything. Little did I know that brushing it off was the biggest mistake I could have made. It was the afternoon of July 3rd, and I was visiting my sister in Atmore for the 4th of July weekend. I'd missed Liam's birthday earlier that year, so he'd insisted I come down for the holiday to make up for it. I couldn't say no to those big blue eyes and ended up making the 3-hour drive. Around 2 p.m., Liam asked if I'd take him to the Walmart on Briar Road to pick up some decorations and fireworks for the next day's cookout. My sister, Lena, offered to take him, but he only wanted me to go with him. I told her to stay back and get the food started while I made a quick run to the store. Outside, the whole town was decked out in red, white, and blue. Flags were everywhere, and Liam was beaming with excitement. We'd been inside for about 15 minutes and had already finished the seasonal aisle, grabbed our napkins and plates, and found the string lights Liam wanted. We were just headed toward the fireworks section when this guy walked up to us, holding a bundle of white and blue lights. "This one's way better than what you've got. It changes speeds."
Nigga, did I ask?
He started rambling about why we should pick his suggestion instead, until Liam finally wore me down and I had to switch. I thanked him and kept moving, picking up the rest of the items on Liam's list, hoping he'd leave us alone. But he kept popping up with another helpful suggestion. I realized pretty quickly that he wasn't actually shopping. He didn't have a cart or a basket, and every time I glanced up, he was only a couple of feet away. He was maybe 50, heavyset and wearing a plain gray shirt. There was nothing remarkable about him, except the way he kept staring at Liam instead of me. When our eyes met, he gave me a smile that made my skin crawl. He tried pushing a different brand of sparklers on us, claiming they'd last longer, but I ignored him and ducked into the next aisle. Over in the toy section, he actually crouched down to Liam's level, grabbed his hands, and said, "Kids have such soft hands these days." Yeah.
These days? Yeah, he gotta go. I ain't gonna cap.
Yanked Liam back so fast that he stumbled. I stepped between them and told the guy clearly that if he came near us again, I was going to security. His smile vanished. "Jeez, I was just trying to help." He straightened up, gave me a hard look, and walked away into the store. I didn't see him again. We finished shopping in about 10 minutes. I paid, kept Liam glued to my side, and hurried us out to the car. Once Liam was buckled in and the bags were in the trunk, I jumped behind the wheel. I'd barely pulled onto the main road when I spotted a beat-up white van in the rearview mirror.
Of course it's a white van.
I tried to ignore it, but I felt like I was being followed, so I changed lanes. My stomach dropped when the van shifted with me. My palms were slick on the wheel, and my heart was racing. I took an unplanned right turn, hoping to shake him, but he stayed glued to my bumper. I even gunned it through a yellow light, but he blew through it without a second thought. In the back seat, Liam was still chattering about the fireworks, oblivious. I forced myself to answer him, keeping my voice steady while my knuckles turned white from gripping the wheel. I made a few more random turns, praying it was just a coincidence, but the van was always right there behind us.
"Auntie, is that car racing us?"
Liam said, looking out the window.
No, sweetie. It'll go a different way.
I couldn't drive us home. I wasn't about to lead some creep to our doorstep. So I headed straight for the Millfield Police Department on Cascade Avenue, pulling into the lot and parking right under the bright lights near the entrance. The van slowed down as it crawled past the station before speeding off. I took a breath and sat there for a minute before getting Liam out and heading inside. The police documented the incident and pulled the Walmart security footage. They saw him, but somehow he managed to dodge the cameras every time he looked in our direction. It was like he knew exactly where they were. They never caught the guy. The van had been reported stolen weeks earlier, and they didn't have any leads. Liam still had an awesome 4th of July. To this day, he has no idea how close we came to trouble. He's growing up and becoming more familiar with the horrors of the world. Someday, if he remembers any of it, he'll realize how differently that day could have ended. The thought...
Holy clutch. If she didn't pull into that police station, fries.
Still chills me every time the 4th of July comes around. I check my rearview mirror every single time I get in the car with him now. I don't think that's a habit I'm ever going to lose.
Hey, can I set this up behind that tree? It'd be a perfect spot for the launch,
I said, pointing toward the old barren tree in the far corner of the farm. It was the only one without any decorations or an American flag. No, it's off limits. My cousin shook his head. That tree's cursed. I started to laugh, but the look on his face stopped me cold. I quieted down and asked him what he meant. Well, people say that on a stormy night, a woman hung herself from that tree. Lightning struck and burned both her and the tree to cinders. Now it's just the hollow trunk. Folks have tried to tear it down, but some say her spirit still lingers. Raphael moved off to finish setting up the rocket launchers, but I couldn't stop staring at that corner. The tree stood completely alone, its charred, twisted trunk jutting out from the dry grass. Suddenly, a freezing gust of wind whipped toward me from that direction, making me shiver. I laughed it off, trying to stay calm. I was 14 and way too old to buy into some rural ghost story. Besides, it was the 4th of July, and I wasn't about to let a creepy legend ruin my night. I'd been spending summers at Raphael's family farm in central Texas for as long as I could remember. Their 4th of July celebrations blew mine back home out of the water. We had the classic cookouts, parades, and games all day, and the night ended with 40 minutes of heavy-duty fireworks set off by the local crew. They lit up the whole sky in mesmerizing colors, and half the county would show up in lawn chairs to watch. I was obsessed. That year, Raphael and I were finally old enough to help the crew, which felt like I'd finally cracked the inner circle. During the day, I didn't even notice the tree, but as the sun went down, its bareness became impossible to ignore. The first time I spotted something strange, I was lugging a crate of shells toward the launch zone. I'd set the box down to grab some water when my eyes caught a flicker of movement in the corner of the field. I glanced over and saw a pale shape hovering near the base of the trunk. I pointed it out to Raphael, but he shrugged and said it was probably a plastic bag caught in the grass, so I let it go. But every time I had to walk past that corner, my skin prickled as if I were being watched. I kept catching quick flashes of white in my peripheral vision, but whenever I looked directly, nothing was there. The lower the sun sank, the more the hair on my arms stood up. I could swear I felt eyes crawling up the back of my neck. Soon, the music kicked in, and the tree slipped out of my mind. I was hanging out by the big American flag that had been put up that morning, when all of a sudden, the music seemed to fade into the background, and a soft humming melody drifted into my ears. It was weirdly hypnotic, and I felt drawn to it. I slipped away from the crowd and started walking toward the tree. When I finally saw her, my blood went cold. A woman was standing at its base. She was
Oh my gosh, it's the ghost of the lady that hung herself.
bony, gaunt, and dripping wet. as if she'd just been dragged out of a lake. Her hair was matted to her face, and her hollow red eyes stared right through me. My whole body started shaking. I felt cold and numb, but my heart was pounding. I wanted to reach out and touch her. Then, a group of guys walked by, and when I looked back, she was gone. A hand on my shoulder snapped me back. It was Raphael's dad. He'd found me standing there like a statue. I told him what I'd seen, but he said the atmosphere was probably playing tricks on me and sent me to grab some drinks. I tried to convince myself he was right and kept busy. About an hour later, the fireworks started. The sky exploded with colors. Everyone was cheering. Raphael was standing next to me, eating a popsicle and ranking the fireworks, and I was agreeing with him. Suddenly, the humming returned, and my legs started moving on their own. I walked right past a group.
Okay, so he might be schizo. Because how is he the only person hearing and seeing this?
Of kids and an elderly couple watching the fireworks. I was about 40 feet from the tree, well beyond the launch area. My eyes were glued to it. The weather was clear, without a cloud in sight, and the night sky was bursting with fireworks. Then, thunder rumbled overhead, and lightning cracked across the sky. In that half-second flash, I saw the silhouette of a half-burned woman standing beside the tree. Her arms hung at her sides, and her head was tilted back. Her outline looked wrong, as if she had been burned away around the edges. Her face turned toward me. Her eyes were pleading, and her mouth formed the words, "Help me." I wanted to reach out, but before I could take another step, Raphael came running from the side. He grabbed my arm and dragged me back just as the final shell exploded, painting the sky red and white. I let him pull me back into the crowd and didn't look at the tree again. But when Raphael asked me what had happened, I couldn't stop going into detail about what I'd seen and felt. The next morning, they found the tree split down the center. It looked as though a door had been ripped open from top to bottom. Nobody had heard a thing during that night, and there hadn't been any storms or rain to explain it. Raphael's family didn't say a word about it.
Dang, didn't his dad just have brown hair? How you get blonde hair in the next 12 hours?
At breakfast, and neither did we. But we did catch each other's eyes across the table for a second before looking away. 10 years have passed since then. I haven't been back to that farm, and Raphael and I have never mentioned it again. But sometimes, I still think about those pleading eyes and can't stop turning the story over in my head. What made her do it? Did she even do it herself, or did somebody else do it? What was she trying to escape that
Gang, you are schizo.
still held her down even in death? Did she finally manage to escape, or is she still stuck there? It was 9:30 p.m. on the 4th of July. Outside, the sky was lit up with fireworks, and you could feel the vibrations of crowds cheering in the distance. Mark and I were having dinner, trying to enjoy a relaxed night after the wreck our lives had been through. Suddenly, a loud knock rattled the doorframe. My husband froze. The blood drained from his face, and sweat started trickling down his forehead, as if he already knew exactly who was standing on the other side and what they were capable of. "Could it be at this hour?" he whispered, staring at the door like he was afraid it might burst open. Mark and I had been married for 9 years. We met at work through a mutual colleague and got married in his hometown after about 3 years of dating. Life had us moving around a lot, and between the constant changes and settling into new places, the spark had slowly faded. I discovered his affair accidentally while going through his phone about 6 years ago.
Wait, what? He had an
turned out
affair? Hold on, let me go back. Sorry, chat. Where was I? I was here.
His face, and sweat started trickling down his forehead, as if he already knew exactly who was standing on the other side and what they were capable of. "Could it be at this hour?" he whispered, staring at the door like he was afraid it might burst open. Mark and I had been married for 9 years. We met at work through a mutual colleague and got married in his hometown after about 3 years of dating. Life had us moving around a lot, and between the constant changes and settling into new places, the spark had slowly faded. I discovered his affair accidentally while going through his phone about 6 years ago. It turned out she was a junior colleague, and the affair...
6 years ago? You had an affair 6 years ago, you knew, and y'all were still together? Holy fries.
Colleague, and the affair had been going on for about 4 months. It crushed me so badly that I didn't even want to look at her photo or know her name. We spent 3 weeks barely speaking and sleeping in separate rooms. I wanted to end the marriage, but Mark begged me for another chance. He promised it was over and swore he'd been a fool and would never make the same mistake again. Eventually, our families got involved, and even our therapist suggested we take some time to make a clear-headed decision. The 4th of July was fast approaching. Both of us wanted to get out of the city, away from everyone who knew us, and have an honest conversation. Mark had ended things with her the week before. He told me she'd accepted it, and that it wouldn't be an issue. The cabin was my idea. We'd driven 3 hours into the mountains, renting one tucked away off a dirt road where you couldn't see another soul. Fireworks were popping off in the valley below, sending little bursts of color through the trees. We'd had dinner, opened a bottle of wine, and were actually having the kind of honest conversation we hadn't managed in months.
Look, there's no one else to blame but me. I'm a married man, and it was just stupid and cruel. I know what I did was unforgivable. I love you, Jen. I promise.
A knock at the door interrupted him and made him freeze. All the color drained from his face, and he went completely still.
Who is that?
I asked. He didn't answer. He stood up and headed for the door. The woman standing on the porch was maybe 5 years younger than us. Her dark hair was tucked into a messy bun, and she was wearing a light jacket that didn't stand a chance against the mountain chill. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her face was pulled tight with anger.
Alyssa.
Mark sounded horrified. Before I could blink, she stepped forward and cracked him across the face.
You fucking swine! You told me you loved me!
She screamed. I tried to step in, but Mark pushed past me onto the porch, trying to steer her away from the doorway. He was attempting to stay calm, throwing out apologies that only seemed to fuel her rage. The woman was hysterical, shrieking over him and shouting that he'd only ended things because I'd manipulated him.
I know you want me! It's that bitch! She has stolen you away! She got between us! But I know how to remove her.
Suddenly, her hand shot out and grabbed
Remove?
the large kitchen knife we'd left on the porch table after lunch. Mark scrambled after her, but she lunged past him and charged straight at me. I twisted out of the way just in time, but she still caught my arm. The cut felt like a searing burn, but it was enough to send a jolt of panic through me. Before she could reach me again, I grabbed the nearest wooden chair and shoved it between us.
Nigga, where is the husband, whatever his name is? Why is he just letting this happen?
She swung twice, hacking at the air, but I kept backing away, putting furniture between us as I desperately tried to get my phone. Mark lunged at her from behind, but she spun and jammed the knife into his side. He let out a raw, guttural sound I'd never heard before and slumped against the wall. Even as he went down, he was still gripping her wrist, refusing to let her go. She fought to break free, screaming about betrayal. Without thinking, I grabbed the chair and swung, hitting the back of her head as hard as I could, and she went down. I pinned her arms beneath me and dialed 911 with my free hand, screaming at Mark to stay with me. The operator stayed on the line, talking to me while I held Alyssa down with my knee across her arms and watched Mark struggle to breathe from across the room. She assured me help was coming and asked me to keep talking. The police arrived 20 minutes later. It might as well have been an eternity. The woman was taken away in handcuffs. She was still screaming. Mark was airlifted to a hospital in the valley. The knife had missed anything vital by about 2 inches. He was home 6 days later. The night before he was discharged, we watched fireworks from the hospital parking lot, sitting on the hood of my car with a blanket draped around his shoulders. It wasn't the 4th of July.
Gang. Oh my gosh. She's a bird, bro. All this happened. She found out he was having an affair. He was having an affair for like 4 months or whatever. She stayed. Then they have this conversation. The girl he having an affair with knocks on the door and tries to kill her. And she stays. And now she's smiling with him. Like,
We'd planned, but he was alive. I don't know what our marriage is now. It's not what it was before, and it's not what it was during those 3 weeks when I thought it was over. We're still figuring it out. But he grabbed her wrist after she stabbed him. He held on, trying to keep her away from me because he was afraid of losing me. I know nothing can undo what he did, but those actions have to mean something. I'm just not sure what yet.
dang. He did not hold her for you. He held her because I don't even know.